Chapter 1. So a werewolf, a vampire and a fae walk into a bar. Joe says, his lips pursed in exaggerated performance. What's a fae? Frank asks from the end of the bar. He follows his question with a long drink of his Guinness, sloshing a bit out of his glass and onto the counter I just wiped down 3 seconds ago. Frank's a beefy type with a thick body and a thick dark beard that covers his aging skin. He was a truck driver for 40 years and is now a professional barfly. Joe shrugs, his eyes bloodshot and his beer belly hanging over his belt. Like an elf. You know, like those movies. His alcohol habit has aged him by at least 10 years. Well, that and grief. A broken heart will break your body just as fast. His 50 looks closer to 60, and his formerly brown hair is now streaked with gray. Nobody gives a shit about your stupid jokes, Joe, Phil says from his standard spot at a booth in the back. The youngest of them, Phil, is tall and skinny with a blonde scruff of hair that dances wildly on his head, like it can hear music no one else can. He works construction like most of the men around here, so he's always got filthy fingers wrapped around my otherwise clean pint glasses. Joe's face falls, but he retains his optimism. You care, don't you, Bernie? I grin, rubbing a wet cotton rag over the spill Frank just made. Sure I do, Joe. As long as you tip. I wink to take the sting out of my words, and he chuckles along with everyone else. It's Tuesday, our slowest night of the week, and these guys are all regulars. They've been coming to Morgan's since before I was born, and will probably haunt the place long after I'm dead. Joe takes a swig of his Smithwick's. Okay, fine. You're right. Vampires are dead. No one likes those bastards since they started to sparkle. Hold on, I've got another one. The past, present and future walked into a bar, he says, and before anyone can give him a hard time, he wraps the joke up. It was tense. That one actually makes me laugh out loud. What can I say? I'm a geek at heart. I just play the tough as nails Irish girl to keep the locals happy. I mean, it's not all an act. I was raised in a bar, my Irish heritage shines brightly in my pale skin and dark hair, and I'll absolutely punch a drunk who gets handsy. And if it weren't for these locals, I'd never have made it out of this town, even if I did end up right back where I started. Fate is a bitch, and if she decides to walk into my bar, I'll show her ass out. A twinge of pain flashes deep in my abdomen. I lean against the counter, exhaling quickly and holding onto my protruding belly. Hey there, little one. What's going on? It's not time to meet yet. Joe glances down at my stomach and is about to say something, a worry line creasing his forehead, when a loud crash sends him into full panic mode as the walls of Morgan's Irish pub shake. What the hell was that? He asks. Is it aliens? Is this it? They've finally come for us. He starts looking around the bar for what? I'm not sure. A place to hide from the aliens, maybe? A lightsaber? I roll my eyes and make my clumsy way to the front door. Relax, Joe. As probably just a tree knocked down by the storm. That's the other reason we're so slow tonight. A wicked blizzard that's going to make driving a bitch if it hasn't already. When I open the door, a gust of snow and wind nearly knock me to the floor. Hold tightly to the door frame and grab my coat from the rack, shrugging into it as I trudge out into the cold to check on the damage. I shiver against the blistering winds and suck in my breath at the scene before me. The roads are covered in inches of thick fluffy snow, making it look like a winter wonderland. Winters are always harsh up here, but this is something else. In fact, this might be the worst we've had since I've been alive. It will take out power for at least a few days, and I shudder to think what the homeless will do, but I can't help but marvel at the temporary beauty it's inspired. I stand there so long my eyelashes begin to freeze shut. Blinking, I trudge through the inches of snow to the right where the crashing sound came from. I'm expecting a downed tree or power line, but I don't see anything unusual at first. Then I notice a hole in my wall the size of a grapefruit. I scoot closer, tugging my coat around my belly as best I can. I was too cheap to spring for a maternity coat and am really regretting that act of frugality right now, and peer into the hole looking for evidence of what caused it. Something is stuck deep in the crumbling brick, but it's not a tree or a branch. I reach in, my fingers numb from the cold, and feel around, hoping I'm not about to get bitten by a radioactive spider or feral chipmunk. Nothing bites me, but I do feel the smooth edges of a rock. It's a little warm but not hot enough to burn. Gripping the ridges, I nudge it out inch by inch as the brick crumbles around my hand into dust. With one final tug, I pry the object free and hold it in my hand. Before I can get a good look, the light above flickers out. I turn to the road and watch. The street lights do the same. Awesome. I take the rock with me, my thoughts bouncing between what category storm can toss around small boulders and how strong the generators at the maternity wing of the hospital are. I hurry back to the warmth of the bar as fast as I can without slipping on the ice and falling on my ass. Heat blasts me as I step inside. Naturally, my alcoholic patrons have already started lighting candles, so I won't kick them out. I love them, even with all their problems. I take a moment to look at this rock. It's metallic gray with copper veins running through it. Veins that seem to glow, though I'm sure that's just a trick of the light. I shrug off my jacket and tuck the rock away on a shelf behind the bar. What you got there? Joe asks, his voice slightly slurred because even I've lost track of how many Smithwicks he's had. I look at it and shrug. A rock, I guess. A bit unusual looking. You guys ever seen the wind throw stones before? I look around at Frank, Joe and Phil, the only patrons of our fine establishment tonight. Well, except Carl, but he's passed out in the back booth as always. There are stories that he has never moved and he's actually a well-preserved corpse. I can neither confirm nor deny this, but his tab gets paid and he doesn't smell any worse than these other bastards. So we're good. It's bad out there, guys. One last round? Then I'm closing shop before you're stuck here all week. There's a collective groan at being kicked out before 9 on a Tuesday, God forbid. But I shrug and top off drinks. They'll thank me in the morning when they wake up in their own beds rather than the floor of my bar. I'm just serving the last beer when the bell over the door dings, and I look up in surprise as a flurry of snow chases 3 men into my bar. And by 3 men I mean 3 absolute specimens. These are hands down the sexiest guys I've ever seen. Takes me all of 2 seconds to make that assessment. I place a hand over my baby bump to remind myself what happens when I let a pretty face and a hot body talk me into bad decisions, and these guys look like a lot of bad decisions wrapped in a delicious bow. Settle yourself, woman. You don't need more complications with a baby on the way. Close the door, Frank shouts. You're letting in the storm and Bernie ain't mopping that shit in her condition. A smile tugs at the corner of my lips. This town takes care of its own, that's for sure. And by the looks of these newcomers, they're definitely not from around here. Though they came in together, I get the distinct impression they're not exactly friends as they glare at each other suspiciously. What they're doing in my pub on a weeknight during a blizzard is beyond me. They each choose separate tables near the back, though they don't take their eyes off each other. Strange. As I walk over to take their order, I also study them. I may have sworn off men for the foreseeable future, like until my kid is in college. But that doesn't mean I can't enjoy some eye candy when it walks into my bar. Hey guys, we just called last round so I can get you something, but then we're closing up early on account of the storm. A whiskey on the rocks, Mr. Sexy One says, in an accent that sounds vaguely British. He is a tall drink of water and I am thirsty for it. I haven't had sex since the night this baby happened, but again, that's beside the point. His skin is pale like moonlight, and his hair is as dark as midnight and matches the deep dark depths of his eyes. He has a face chiseled from marble, and full lips that are currently pinched in annoyance. He's dressed unusually. In fact, all 3 of them are like they've just come from a cosplay convention, though no cosplay convention would ever come to Rowley. This guy has a long black cloak and wears fitted leather pants and a black silk shirt underneath. It takes all my willpower to pry my eyes off of him and train them on Mr. 62. This boy is all wild energy like an untamed forest, with eyes the color of deep green leaves, coppery brown hair that's tousled in that just had sex way, and a matching stubble that accentuates his rugged good looks. He's dressed in neutral colors and natural fabrics, and looks ready to lead a hike through the woods at night. What'll it be? I ask, trying to sound like the hardened bar owner I should be and not the swoony undersexed pregnant lady I currently am. And are these on the same tab? An ale, he says, his voice deep and resonant, with a sexy lilt that's almost Irish. And no. All right, what about you? I ask Mr. Sexy 3, whose eyes are the lightest blue I've ever seen. He has long, pale blonde hair that only adds to his sex appeal, and wears a rich velvet cloak pinned with a silver brooch. He looks unsure about his choices, so I size him up and suggest a Vesper Martini even though it means more work for me. Very well, he says, and I can't place his accent, but it's definitely not American. What brings you boys to town? I ask, keenly aware that everyone is watching this interaction. The three sexies silently glare at each other for a long moment before Sexy 2 finally answers. A family errand, he says vaguely. Huh, well I hope you didn't drive. It's going to be a rough night on those roads. When none of them reply, I turn and head back to the bar to get their drinks. Joe wags his eyebrows as I work. What's their deal? I don't know. Never seen them before. You gonna bag one of them? He asks with a dumb grin. I roll my eyes. You know I'm not interested in guys right now, I say, trying to hide the fact that I'm extremely interested in all three. He sighs. You deserve a nice guy to settle down with. Before I can reply, another wave of pain grips me, and I lean against the bar to catch my breath. Joe stands, clutching his beer as he does. Burn, you okay? He looks around, a panicked expression on his face. Hey guys, Bernie's baby's coming. We got to get her help. I'm fine. Relax. It's just Braxton Hicks. Totally normal. Frank and Phil stand and drop some bills in front of them. You sure you're okay? Phil asks. I nod, loading drinks on a tray to take to the newcomers. All right then. Take care, Bernie. See you tomorrow, Phil says as he teeters out on slightly drunk legs. Frank hesitates by the door, glancing at Joe then back at me. You gonna be okay, kid? He asks. I wince at the kid part, but he's been calling me that since I was born, so it's hard to expect different. Yeah, it's fine. I'll be closing up soon anyways. Get home safe. Say hi to Alice and the kids. He grimaces at the thought of his family. Will do. When the door opens, a flurry of snow and cold air blows in. Frank and Phil leave quickly, shivering as they step outside. I hold the tray carefully and serve the new guys, studying them as I do. None of them speaks, but their simmering glares speak volumes. You three look like you're having fun, I say. Bachelor party? Sexy one raises an eyebrow. Are you Bernadette Morgan? He asks. It's my turn to raise an eyebrow in return. Who's asking? Hey Bern. One more drink, pretty please? Joe asks, interrupting whatever Sexy one was about to say, if he was about to say anything at all. I've only had a couple? A few. Joe, you know that's not a good idea. You're drunk enough for a night like this. I head back to the bar and start running through my closing checklist when another pain grips my belly and I brace myself against the counter, taking quick breaths that sound a little too much like I'm in labor. I'm not. I can't be. It's too soon and I'm snowed in. There would be no way to get to a hospital tonight. I grab my phone to Google Braxton Hicks contractions. I've read all the damn books and I know what I'll find, but I need Dr. Google to make me feel better, or convince me I'm dying of a rare disease. Either way, as long as this baby doesn't make her debut today, I'm good. I open my browser, but it lags. Shit. No service. Joe is sweating profusely and cursing under his breath. You okay there, buddy? I ask through my own gritted teeth. He looks up, his eyes widening. Yeah, it's just, you look like shit. I grimace. Thanks. Every woman's dream compliment. Oh, I didn't mean that, Bernie. He tugs at his overgrown facial hair. Nervously, his gray bushy eyebrows dancing atop his eyes like agitated caterpillars. As the cramps in my belly ease, I take a relieved breath and smile. There ya go. All better. I told you, false alarm. He scoots himself back onto the bar stool in front of me and grabs the remains of the drink Frank left, downing it in one long gulp that only seasoned alcoholics can manage with such aplomb. I crack a wry grin, raising an eyebrow. You good now? He swipes his forehead with the back of his hand. Yeah, sorry. Not great. In medical emergencies, he says shyly. My wife always handled that shit. When pat his hand. I know, Joe, it's okay. Outside the storm intensifies, the howling of the wind sending a shiver down my spine. How long has it been now? 2 years. He nods. Last week marked 2 years since cancer stole my Betty. He sniffs, looking around for another drink. Did you drive here? I ask. Nope. Walked. I nod and pull out a clean tumbler. Normally on a night like tonight I'd pour 2 and share in the drink, but with this little one riding shotgun on my bladder, my drinking days are on pause. I pour 2 fingers of whiskey and scoot the glass to Joe, caving on my earlier resolution to cut him off. On the house, I say, pouring myself a club soda. I hold my glass up in toast. To Betty. Joe's eyes moisten as he raises his to clink against mine. To Betty. He throws back his whiskey, draining his glass before I've even brought mine to my lips. It's one of those nights, it seems, which honestly is a mood. One I'm looking forward to giving into once I'm no longer an incubator to this little leech I already love more than is proper or right. Are you ready for motherhood? Joe asks, leaning back as the whiskey relaxes. Him. Nope, I say, wiping down the already clean bar and throwing a glance at the sexies to make sure they're still sexy. None of them have touched their drinks, but they are still sexy. I look back to Joe. But is anyone ever really ready? He shrugs. Betty was. She was born to it. I don't bother telling him about the time she was in this very bar crying her heart out over a pint while bemoaning her mothering skills. I was a kid then, working the bar with my grandmother. We're a tight-knit community, so everyone turned a blind eye to my underage service. Even the cops who occasionally came by. Betty is gone and he's all alone. Well, he's got a son, Alex, but he just reminds Joe of the life that got away, so they don't really talk or see each other much. So I won't disabuse him of the notion that things were effortless for his wife. But dear God in heaven, can we please stop acting like this shit isn't hard? 'Cause from what I've seen and heard, and growing up in a family-owned Irish pub, I've seen and heard a lot, this shit is the hardest. You know, we just want you to be happy, he says, glancing at the 3 strangers nursing their drinks. I know. But guys are too much work and I'm all full up with work at the moment. I glance at my protruding stomach and the bar that is now my full-time job since my grandfather died and my grandmother was put in a home. Guys are the very last thing on my mind, especially since my grandfather ran this place into the red when my grandmother was no longer around to keep the books. Now I've got to salvage my family legacy if I have half a chance of supporting myself and my baby and keeping a roof over our heads. Joe finishes up everyone's drinks that were left on the bar and I check the time. 11:14 p.m. Okay guys, wrap it up, I say as I wipe down all the tables, hobbling through the pub like that girl in Willy Wonka who eats the wrong candy and inflates into a ball. Most of the dishes are already washed and I'm half tempted to leave the rest for the morning. Joe stands and wobbles to the door, grabbing his coat from the rack. I hate leaving you like this, Burn. Want me to stay? I could sleep in one of the booths. I yawn, suddenly feeling the weight of the day bear down on me. Nah, I'm good. Get home before you can't. What about your partner in crime? Can she come? He asks. Joe, I'm fine. AJ will be helping out with the bar and everything else non-stop once the baby arrives. I don't want to bother her till then. You know how things are there. Joe shakes his head and I know what he's thinking. AJ was my best friend growing up, but she never left town like I did. She married her high school boyfriend, a guy none of us like. But we can't live her life for her. That's something she's got to figure out. Go on now. It's getting worse out there. Finally, Joe nods, casting one last glance at the silent strangers, and leaves. I want to go to bed to get off my feet and zone out to Netflix, but I know if I leave the bar a mess, my future self won't be happy with me. Begrudgingly, I grab a broom and start sweeping, but before I can get even half the job done, another contraction grips my belly, and for the first time tonight, real fear worms its way into my heart. It's easy to stay out of my head when I'm busy working, but in the silence of the night, I start to question all of my life choices, especially the one that landed me knocked up and single just as I was about to live my dream. Tears burn my eyes as I take a seat on the piano bench, my hands cupping my belly, and I remind myself it wouldn't have mattered. Pregnant or not, my grandfather would still be dead, and I would still be the only Morgan left to carry on our family business. There was no choice then, and there's no choice now. I can do this. I have to do this. It's no longer just my life on the line anymore. I smile through my tears as my baby kicks out, already asserting her right to be here in my life. Through gritted teeth and with steely determination, I stand and keep cleaning, though I have to stop regularly to let the contractions pass. I'm still telling myself it's not the real deal when I feel a gush of liquid run down my legs. Shit. My water broke. I'm having this baby. Right here. In the middle of the night. In the middle of a storm. Guys, I don't suppose any of you is a doctor. Instead of a hospital with an OBGYN, I'm stuck in my bar with 3 strangers, and I'm definitely going into labor. I can no longer stand, so I slide to the floor, clutching my stomach, not sure what I'm going to do now. How can I have a baby alone? They don't teach this in the pregnancy books. I can no longer keep my pain in, and as my muscles squeeze and my back spasms, I scream. I fleetingly wonder if I can make it upstairs to my apartment. I could run a bath, get undressed, and give birth in the water. That wouldn't be too hard, would it? Knowing I absolutely cannot do this on the floor of a bar, I attempt to pull myself up, but lose my grip and slide back down as my contractions quicken. Shit. Terror latches onto me, but I grit my teeth and wipe away the tears. I will do this, if not for me, for my child. When the men all walk over to me, I suddenly feel terror of another sort. Have no idea who these guys are, and I'm completely vulnerable. I curse myself for kicking Joe out, but what would an old drunk do against these guys who look made of pure muscles? In point of fact, Sexy 2 says, I'm a healer. A doctor if you like. A doctor if I like. What the blazes does that mean? Have you ever delivered a baby? I ask. He nods. Many. Good, 'cause you're about to deliver mine. Chapter 2. I can't describe this kind of pain. Blinding comes to mind, but that might just be because my eyes are slammed shut while I wait for either the pain to pass or my life to end. In any case, the feeling of a baby wedging its way out of my uterus makes it hard to focus on anything else, even the outrageously sexy man propped between my legs barking orders at the other 2. Get water boiling, he tells Sexy 1. And you, he says to Sexy 3, get me clean rags and the sharpest knife you can find. No, I say, trying to sit up. Take me upstairs. I need to. You down. Sexy 2 shakes his head. No, you'll stay down here. You're in no condition to be moved right now. He locks eyes with me, and the pain ripping through me ceases momentarily as I get lost in his forest green gaze. Who are you? I ask, panting through another contraction. My name is Zev Bernadette. I'll make sure you deliver the child safely. The brutal contractions fade again as my head spins. Zev? A doctor I've never met who knows my name and waltzed into my bar moments before I went into labor. No one calls me Bernadette unless they're trying to piss me off. And I don't think you want to do that. Anger won't help, but a charge of adrenaline can't hurt, Zev says as he
Direct Sexy 1.
Get behind her and support her back. I feel strong arms slip around my waist and I lean into his chest. I have no shits left to give. What's your name then? I ask when I can speak again. Darius, he says, his lips brushing against my ear with his words. Zev and Darius, I repeat, mostly to make sure I heard right the first time. And how about you? Oh, you? I say to Sexy 3 right as another contraction hits. This labor is progressing much more quickly than what the lady in my birthing class described. Before the third mystery man can answer, Darius chimes in again. Rune, take her other arm, even out the support. Okay, I guess Sexy 3 goes by Rune. Also seems as though these guys know each other, even if they like to sit at different tables when they go out. The pain dulls enough for me to do some quick math. Outside, the storm's getting worse. Inside, I'm going into labor a week early. Most importantly, 3 oddly named, unconscionably sexy men are helping deliver my baby with that calm very few men show in the labor ward. So, WTF? I'm surprised we all arrived at the same time, Rune says to the others. I was sure I had a head start. We work off the same prophecy, old friend, Zev responds in his gruff baritone. There's only one star to guide us. The only surprise, Darius says, is that we never had a discussion as to what we'd do when it came time to take the child. My head cranks toward Darius at these words. Is he talking about my child? I'd ask him directly, but another contraction racks my body and I scream, clutching Darius and Rune's hands with all my strength. Neither even flinches. Meanwhile, with my eyes clamped shut, I feel a firm tugging at my pants. You cannot deliver this child while wearing these, Zev says calmly. Oh God, I hadn't thought about this part. Shit. Someone get me a blanket at least, I say through clenched teeth. Darius and Zev look to Rune, who swiftly pops up and moves to the kitchen. He's good at finding things, Zev explains. As advertised, Rune promptly returns with an armful of large towels. Will this do? He asks, suggesting he could go back into my kitchen and find more somehow better towels. Those are fine. He drapes the cover over my abdomen, as Zev gets me half naked. I will be watching you, dog, Darius says with an unfriendly bite to his voice. Don't think for a second you're quick enough to catch the baby and escape. Zev barks out a short laugh. Oh Darius, how I've missed your playful name calling. And don't expect me to run, I wouldn't want to deprive myself of tearing you apart. Now's not the time to revisit old wounds, Rune says in a condescending tone, like a bored professor explaining something simple to his students for the 10th time. You can carry on with your bickering when the prophecy is fulfilled and the Fae flourish once again. Cocky as ever, Darius mutters. As fascinating as this exchange is, the language terrifies me. If I wasn't so actively birthing a child, I would absolutely sprint into a deadly storm to get away from these men. Who the hell are you people? How did you know my name? Why? Triple A. I can't even finish the question, which is for the best because I didn't really know what to ask. Everything about this situation needs answers, but for now I'm just going to hope these men keep helping since I've got nowhere else to go. Hold my hands, Bernadette, Darius says from behind me. Squeeze when you feel a contraction and focus on pushing. You three stop acting like psychopaths and I will. My face probably shows that I'm terrified, but I don't let on with my words. Growing up in a Massachusetts bar, I learned to talk tougher than I felt at a very early age. Rune lowers himself to the floor, pressing gently against my knee, spreading my legs a little further and bringing back a shade of self-consciousness. He catches my eye and clearly sees a discomfort that goes beyond just the physical. When you feel a contraction, push your leg against my hand. That will activate the muscles you need to move the baby along. I'm about to throw out another verbal lashing when I see Zev nod. He's right. I'll keep my hand on the other knee. I'm surrounded by men who might all be murderers, but without any other options. I've landed on implicitly trusting Zev based on his word that he's a doctor. If I like, I hope it's the doctor claim that got Zev in my good graces and not the ruggedly handsome face, which has always been a weakness of mine. Whatever the case, the new position helps. I scream and push between breaths, barely aware that Darius has put a wet washcloth over my forehead. I trust he grabbed a clean one and not the towel I'd been using to mop up Joe's beer. Everything about this birth has gone wrong, and yet I find the situation strangely empowering. I'd planned on a very sterile clinical hospital bed. Delivery, none of that frou-frou home or water birth stuff that the neighborhood midwives tried to sell me on. But now, sitting at an incline, against a guy named Darius, two dudes named Zev and Rune side by side between my wide open legs, naked but on the cold floor of an empty bar, I feel a small rush of pride over my natural birth. Who needs an epidural when you've got creepy intruders? The head is emerging, Zev says without a trace of happiness in his voice, casually explaining that my labor pains might soon come to an end. Push harder with the next feeling of contraction. Oh, I'm sorry, have I not been pushing hard enough for you? Zev gives me a confused look, clearly not a sarcasm buff. This will make my feisty tone less effective. As another wave of agony ripples through my torso, my legs start to close as my muscles flex. The pressure from Zev and Rune's hands gives me a little extra oomph in my push, and suddenly the pain, while still incomprehensibly awful, takes on a new burn. She's out, Rune says, a look of awe on his face just as the old clock behind the bar strikes midnight. I open my eyes, which have long been soaked with tears but now get a fresh coating. Just a few feet away, after growing inside me for the better part of a year, I see my baby. She's crying bloody and perfect. I'm a broken vessel, torn and sweaty and surrounded by demented intruders, but I don't care. I've never felt love like this. Rain, I murmur, saying my baby's name out loud for the first time. She was always going to have that name, but I promised myself I wouldn't speak it until she arrived. Rune holds the baby with great care, which at first puts me at ease before giving me a funny feeling. He stares at Rain with a kind of reverence that has my hackles up, and he's not making any move to hand her over my way. Give her to me, I say in a steady voice, my body absolutely giddy about being done with the throes of labor. He hesitates. His eyes shift from me to Darius to Zev, and there's a palpable Tension between the three. Pisses me off because give me my freaking baby. He's still cradling my daughter when Zev stands, his impressive stature becoming apparent. Darius rises as well, also a taller than average man. Give the child to her mother, Zev says in a voice that's both calm and terrifying. I know what you're doing, I know the impulse you feel, and neither Darius nor myself will let you move an inch from where you stand while you hold that baby. Maybe it's that I'm still in agony and sitting in afterbirth, but these guys strike me as a special kind of crazy. Nevertheless, Rune seems to catch Zev's drift and he carefully leans over with Rain. I'm about to hold the baby I've been waiting so long to meet. Do you wrap the placenta around the child now or later? Rune's question feels like a mix of the right words in the wrong order. Wrap the baby in the placenta? Do I what now? Or is that something the elders do while your body mends? It's late and I've labored, so I've got zero brain space for these weird questions. Fortunately, Zev steps in. She doesn't share your rituals. Here they eat the placenta. Just pass the child, Rune. While I have no intention of eating the placenta, Zev's suggestion is less bonkers than the previous one. Rune does as he's told with a mild look of disgust on his beautiful face. As I take her into my arms, I feel my shirt being lifted. Darius, in the most forward and inappropriate move ever, is taking off my clothes while I'm incapacitated. My bar owner instinct is to swing the baby at him like the bat. I keep behind the counter to scare off the occasional drunk who has one too many. Fortunately, my maternal instinct steps in and stops me. Darius manages to read the room and explains himself. She needs to feel your skin. Of course I know about skin-to-skin time and how important it is, but this delivery and my new company has thrown me off my game. I drop a little of the tension and let Darius resume with the unprompted disrobing. Finally, naked as a jaybird, I get to hold my baby. As soon as I press her up to my breast, she stops crying and my heart melts all over again. Her little lips inch along my skin searching for a nipple, and it's absolutely the cutest thing that's ever happened in the world. As she starts to nurse, a hand cups the underside of my breast to make the feeding angle easier. I honestly don't know which weirdo's weird hand it is. I'm too absorbed watching my sweet girl. While my eyes stay locked on Rain, I half listen to more outlandish conversation from these men who should feel free to leave at any time. When did you notice the approach of the star? Darius questions the other two, his calm voice floating over my head. We started watching the sky 2 weeks ago, Rune answers. Violence in the realm had escalated, and the readers announced the nearing of the date. I arrived last night, Zev adds. Waited in the woods until the moment arrived. And you, Darius? Surely your kingdom knew of this day well in advance. There's a tense moment between the two men, neither speaking, breathing, or blinking. Darius finally responds, of course. We've known for months. While every inch of my being wants to scream, what the hell is going on? I resist. I'll learn more by listening, and I don't want to do anything that might startle Rain. She's lost the nipple and is making the softest little murmuring sounds. What now? Rune asks, his voice quieter than before. We've arrived at the moment we all expected but never spoke about. There's only one child, and I see only one way out. Whatever Rune is saying makes Zev tense, as I feel his hand squeeze my thigh more tightly, and it sounds like he's growling. Lack of sleep and an exhaustive labor have worn me out. I'm sure the growl was just in my head. Darius puts his hands on my shoulders, sending a shiver down my spine that's both exhilarating and terrifying. It may come to that, Rune, but you'll be up against Zev and myself if you make a false move. We all want the child, but she's of no use, dead or unhealthy. Now I've heard enough to pipe in. I'm sorry, you want the child? I don't know who you are or where dash. My voice stops. It's the craziest sensation because I know what I wanted to say, and now I'm silent, my brain's in a fog, and all I can do is stare into Darius' eyes like I'm in a trance. Let her go, Zev says, though the words don't really register in my clouded head. She needs her wits about her. Let's get her up to her bed, Rune says. The baby is asleep, so the mother should rest as well. Maybe it's the mention of rest, but my mind suddenly becomes mine again and my voice returns. Yes, please. And someone call a real doctor, I think I need actual help dash. You'll be fine, Zev cuts me off. Darius, carry her up. I'll clean the baby. and then come up to tend to the mother's wounds. I'll tidy up down here, Rune says. Needn't create a scene that garners unnecessary attention. Zev gently pulls Rain away from me, which I allow because I'm not sure I have another option, as Darius lifts me from the ground and starts carrying me. Upstairs, my emotions overwhelm me. I'm scared shitless, utterly confused, and deeply in love with my newborn baby. And while this situation makes me feel incredibly uneasy to say the least, it's not lost on me that I've currently got 3 dashing men waiting on me hand and foot. Unfortunately, from what I've gathered, they came to steal my baby, and the only way that'll happen is if they kill me and rip her from my cold, dead hands. Chapter 3. Lying in bed, Rain asleep in her crib in the corner, I slowly come to. I can't have slept much, my body and brain ache for rest. But it's impossible to ignore the conversation going on right outside my bedroom. I still don't have a concrete idea of who or what Darius, Zev, and Rune are, but I know they are different. Not just in the obvious ways like being grossly good-looking and able to help a first-time mother safely deliver a baby on the floor of her bar, but in larger, more cataclysmic ways. For starters, they're not from America. If I had enough to drink, I'd very quickly tell you they aren't from Earth, but my brain still isn't ready to make that leap. Nevertheless, they talk of places I've never heard of before, and know things they should have no way of knowing. And while those particulars could be explained with a little con artistry, other things seem magical. It takes a lot of effort to get past my cynicism. On more than one occasion, I've made a magician cry by yelling bullshit, until he or she pulled back the curtain to show me how the trick worked. Mysterious men, hot as they may be, don't immediately have me believing in the paranormal. And yet, things just seem otherworldly. Everything from the timing of their arrival to the ways they dress, talk, and move makes me feel like these men can't be explained using traditional terms and ideas. I nodded off a lot during birthing classes because I didn't think I was learning anything, but I'm starting to wonder if I slept through the part where they tell you that the pain of labor causes the most vivid hallucinations imaginable. Though if that were the case, wouldn't other women be talking about how they thought their doctors and nurses morphed into
Exceedingly sexy stranger?
These thoughts are keeping me awake, as well as the conversation my possibly hallucinated companions are having. Of course we can't arrange a deal, Darius, Zev says in a hushed tone. We all want the child for the same reason. What are you prepared to offer that's equal in value to being eternally allied with the fates and saving your people from extinction? I haven't thought that far, friend, Darius responds. It's getting easier to distinguish their voices, and I'm still solidly pretending I'm asleep. Growing up above a bar with very little privacy in our tiny 2-room apartment, I learned the best way to get information the grown-ups didn't want you to have was to fake sleep. Apro. There must be something in the prophecy to use as a guide, Rune says. An impartial detail to determine who is the rightful courier. Don't be foolish. The condescension in his tone lets me know this is Darius. The entire point of the prophecy is that this last step is undecided. We in this room are the final sentence of the scroll. Our version wasn't written, only spoken amongst elders and royals. Zev speaks with a tone that's calm, sophisticated, and gruff. His voice alone gives me goosebumps. You relied on an oral translation of the Fates declaration? Darius says snidely. Got me here at the same time as you, friend. I know I need sleep, but I can't stop listening, and I don't want them to stop talking. Also, for 3 beings who may or may not have superpowers, they are doing a crap job at noticing how loud they are and how nearby I am. Or maybe they just recognize that I'm vulnerable and powerless and they don't really care what I hear. I shift slightly on account of the ever-present throbbing throughout my body, and the movement immediately shushes the conversation. This is as good a time as any to join in on the sexiest little powwow. What are you 3 talking about? There's a beat of silence, then the sexies slowly shuffle into my doorway, looking like teens caught coming home after curfew. Look at me, only a few hours into motherhood and already commanding respect. You should keep resting, Burn Dash. Nee. I jump in, knowing Zev is about to go with the full name.
Eva hated.
It's since I was a kid and I'm not about to change my tune. Zev can deliver as many of my babies as he pleases. We're still not going full Bernadette. Yeah, I know I need rest. Thing is, there are 3 guys in my house that I don't remember asking to stay, and it's making it a little hard to sleep. We're only keeping an eye on you and the baby,
Berne.
I applaud Darius for the awkward attempt, even if his face looks ridiculous while he tries to make an E sound. Your health and safety is our chief concern. Rune picks up where Darius left off. We can assure you of that. Whether it's the constant chatter or it's actually feeding time, Rain starts to fuss. I'm sure she's hungry, but I'll use this as an opportunity to shame my trio of midwives. Well, you seem to be overlooking the importance of the baby sleeping, so maybe you can take the conversation to the living room while I feed her. I may have scored a small victory here, as the three turn to leave. Each moves differently, yet all possess the same silent grace that makes them so hard to look away from. A growing cry from my baby finally breaks my trance and I shuffle over to her. Walking doesn't hurt the way I'd expect it to, and I take a moment to examine my nether regions. Jesus, Mary and Joseph. Which one of them stitched me up? And when? Maybe that happened while I was first holding Rain, but you'd think I'd remember a hulking man running a needle and thread through my, you know? Again, I push thoughts of my visitors aside as my gaze lands on Rain. She was perfect the first time I saw her, and she's somehow even more incredible now, all swaddled up and clean. She's so beautiful in her little crib, more precious than I ever could have imagined. Come here, sweet little peanut. Mama's got you. Her cries taper off as I pick her up and move her to my breast. I'm still scared of feeding, no real idea if I'm doing it right and no real advisor, other than some of the wives of my drunken regulars. Still, she looks like she's eating, so I'll keep doing what I'm doing. I ease into the rocker by the crib, going as slowly as possible because I'm still a little suspect of the stitch job downstairs. Just as I lean my back into the chair, three figures careen through the room, moving at a pace that makes them a literal blur. In my state, I can't confidently describe what happens, but I'll swear on my mother's grave it didn't involve humans. Rune comes into the room first, but he doesn't enter, he appears like out of thin air. Before my brain processes that, a shadow travels along the ceiling, though nothing's there to cast it. The shadow is flying solo, and I know that's not how shadows work. Just as this dark enigma is landing by my side, Zev explodes next to me. Explode doesn't sound right, but neither does the manner in which he arrives, because all I see out of the corner of my eye is a mix of fur and legs and face. As fast as the dizzying movement starts, it ends, and now the guests I kicked out of my room 30 seconds ago are back. What in the flying F dash? Move an inch and I'll rip your heart out through your back. I'm sure Zev's not talking to me, but I still glance his way to see where his eyes are trained. He's clearly locked in on Darius, and he's got one of his enormous hands hovering centimeters from Rain's head. Scares the breath from my lungs, but that's as much as I dare to move. I'm standing between the Fae and the baby fool, Darius spits back. He moved to come back in here the second he stepped into the living room. The wolf flinched first, not I, Rune hisses defensively. I smelled aggression on one of you, and clearly I was right, Zev says. Low growl in his throat. Wolf. Fae. The little corner of my brain that's been warning me we're no longer in Kansas finally has the microphone. This shit is different. Move your paw away from the baby, Zev. Rune speaks in a tone that seems less about commanding Zev and more about protecting Rain, which is finally something I can appreciate in this excruciating standoff. The three men say nothing, each tense from teeth to toes as they wait to see if the other might move. I finally decide to speak, though I'm half expecting I'll startle Zev and get swallowed whole. Each of you, I start, talking as quietly and slowly as possible. Step to the center of the room and sit in front of me. Do it now or I'll find a way to murder all of you, so help me God. I feel their eyes on me as they consider my pitch. While I know they don't fear for their physical safety, it does seem they either respect me or need me for something, so my words carry a little weight. After a few more seconds of stillness, they do as directed, and the feeling of getting these three to follow instructions is borderline orgasmic. As he moves to sit, I notice a small smirk on Rune's face. Might be the first emotion I've seen other than indifference and white-hot anger. Something funny, Rooney Tunes? When in doubt, go schoolyard nicknames. Funny? I suppose in its way. You say God. Singular. I always forget the simplicity of the earthly deities. His answer elicits a slight nod from Zev. Simplicity? I respond, a little incredulous. If religion here is simple, I'd hate to see the complex version. How do things work where you're from? Pal.
Rune stays silent.
So do the others. Seems like my prying questions are going to get a little resistant, so I opt to go all in. It helps my confidence that they are sitting crisscross applesauce like children in front of me, all lined up in a row. I smirk at that and straighten my spine as I speak. You clearly need something from me, and none of you are happy with the others being here. So, if you want to get on my good side, one of you assholes better tell me what the bloody hell is going on. I notice a feeling of safety creeping in, like my body trusts the people nearby and has released some tension. It's probably just the oxytocin from nursing flooding me with a happy hormone cocktail, but it's giving me the self-assurance to make demands, and hopefully that will help me keep a little control in a life that otherwise has gone way the hell off the rails in the last few hours. Darius clears his throat, the first to man up and answer my damn question. Rune and Zev both look at him, apparently as eager to hear what he's got to say as I am. There's a prophecy, one you know not of, though it exists in your world. Great stopping point. I barge right in, needing clear answers in a hurry. If this is my world, where are you from? A different realm. I'm not sure you can understand it. His dark eyes flick away like he's already bored with this conversation. I narrow my eyes at his condescending tone. Try me. We're in the same spheres of time but a different world altogether, he says, and then adds under his breath, one safe from the plague of humanity. I'll unpack that plague of humanity bit in a minute. Zevrun, this is true. I ask for confirmation like I'm cross-checking the alibis of 3 kids who cut school. Talking like a principal is one of the few ways I can fake authority when I don't feel like I've really got it. The others nod and don't offer anything new, so I look back to Darius, prompting him to continue. The prophecy speaks of your child, when it would be born, the star that would guide its spirit, and the incomparable importance of its soul. He lets those words hang as though they mean something, and clearly they do, but only to a person who's in league with these whack jobs. Okay, I shrug. And this time Zev butts in before Darius can continue. He seems to read the room a little better than his counterpart. Rain must leave this realm. Her soul is needed in another kingdom for a purpose you're not ready to hear. Yeah, well, that's fine, because we're not going anywhere, so it doesn't matter if I hear it or not. To punctuate my sentence, I quickly move my nursing child from one breast to the next, immediately regretting the decision, as she nearly rips the nipple clean off. When I get her settled and look back up, I'm met with 3 very serious, very stern sets of eyes. No, you're not going anywhere, that is true, Darius says. Rain must come alone to the vampire's kingdom. Zev snorts. The vampires are at the root of these problems, dear Darius. Don't act as though the wolves are innocent, dear Zev, Rune interrupts. Only the Fae, with our connection to nature, can truly right this. Hold up, so Darius, you're a vampire? I'm waiting for someone to pop out of a corner and tell me I'm being pranked. But when no one does and Darius gives an imperceptible nod, I shift my gaze to Zev. And you? Werewolf or wolf spirit or wolf shifter, we have many names, he says, as if explaining his dad's half German. And I am Fae, Rune says with a lofty pride the other 2 clearly don't care for. I'm about 3 seconds from unleashing some serious mother bear energy on these 3 psychos when a knock at the front door interrupts me. All 3 guys turn their attention to the intrusion, and I stand with Rain clutched to my chest. Who could possibly be coming for the visit right now? Darius looks unwilling to let me pass, but the pounding on the door gets louder. Bernie? You in there? A voice calls from outside. Joe called the station. Said you might be in labor. I got here as soon as I could. I glare at Darius, then share the glare with the others. That would be the chief of police and a longtime family friend. If you don't let me answer that, you're going to have a much bigger problem to deal with very soon. I mean what I say. If he thinks I'm in trouble, Chief Roland will try to give these guys hell without regard for his own safety. The question then becomes, what will these strangers do to him? And after that, what will they do to me? Chapter 4. Bernie. The banging on the door becomes more aggressive and Rain hiccups and begins to cry. I'm coming in one way or another, hon. Answer me, please. What's it gonna be? I ask the trio before me as I gently rock Rain, patting her back to soothe her. This only seems to make her cry more loudly, and her screams echo through my small apartment. Bernadette. Now the chief sounds panicked. He's using my full name. That's not a good sign, I say. Darius steps aside. Go. But watch what you say. We are not the ones who would be at risk were you to speak out of turn. I narrow my eyes at the implied threat, but I hold my tongue when I see the unbridled violence simmering in his pitch-black eyes. Turning away from his glare, I weave through the three guys towards my front door. When I yank it open, the chief, who was mid-knock, pulls his hand back, startled. My God, Bernie, you gave me a real scare. His gaze drops to the screaming bundle in my arms and his eyes widen. So it's true. You had your baby. I certainly didn't steal this one from someone else, I joke. He chuckles and runs a hand through his slightly balding hair. You had us all worried, he says as he cranes his neck to scope out my apartment. Who helped you? I glance back at the men crowding the entrance to my bedroom, wondering how much I should say. Could Chief Roland help me get rid of these guys? From what I've seen, I'm not sure, but it doesn't mean I'm not gonna try. Why don't you come in and meet my knights in shining armor? I say with a saccharine smile. The chief blinks, likely unused to me acting this way when I'm not on bar duty. Sure. Yeah, I'd like that. He's dressed in street clothes, but he shifts his coat just enough to reveal the gun holstered at his hip. I nod in approval and lead him into my apartment, which, to be honest, has seen better days. The hardwood floor is pretty timeless if scuffed in places, but the couch is threadbare and sagging. The recliner is a relic from a different epoch, and not in a cool, antique kind of way. The kitchen is littered with dated dishes and appliances that scream 60s yard sale rejects, and the wallpaper is peeling. And this wallpaper? Yeah, not the trend. Still, it's been home since my mom died and my grandparents took me in. The chief looks a little misty-eyed as he studies the place. I haven't been in here since my grandfather died, I say. Well, you're always welcome. Grandpa would love to know his old friends were still coming by. Rain has finally settled down, and though she doesn't fall back asleep, is enjoying snuggling against my chest. Would you like to hold her? Asked, though I'm reluctant to let go of my baby. The chief's eyes widen. Yes, I would. He has 4 of his own kids and a handful of grandbabies, so he knows how to support her head, but as he takes her, the 3 men hiding out near my bedroom appear, their predatory instincts on high alert. Who might you be? The chief asks, one hand dropping back to his gun as he clutches my child carefully with his other. These are the fine gentlemen who came to my rescue, I say, introducing them. Zev here is a doctor of sorts, and he delivered little Rain with the help of his friends. They stayed to make sure I was okay. But your timing is perfect. They were looking for a place to stay in town. Maybe you could take them to Nancy's bed and breakfast and convince her to give them a room until the roads are clear enough for them to continue on their way. The chief frowns. I'm sure Nancy could find you boys something. Darius glares at me. We are not in need of accommodations at this time. You're going to need somewhere to stay until the power comes back and the roads are safe for driving, I say sweetly. The chief, sensing the tension, hands Rain back to me. Why don't you boys come with me? We'll get you sorted. I'm sure Nancy will comp your stay for helping out our Bernie here. Thanks, Chief, I say, nuzzling my baby. Why does she smell so good? How'd she get so perfect so fast? When the guys don't move to follow him, the chief unsnaps his holster and pulls at his gun. Do we have a problem here? Darius steps forward, his darkest sin eyes locked on the chief. There is no problem here. You can leave. Bernie, he says, stumbling on my name, is safe. We are friends here to help her. You will spread the word that we are staying with Bernie and everything is fine. Hey, hold up, I say, turning to the chief, but his pupils are dilated and he nods. Of course. So glad you boys are here to take care of her. If you need anything, call. And then he walks out and closes the door behind him, leaving me speechless with the 3 sexies, who might need a new nickname at this point. The 3 irritants perhaps. Or the 3 pains in my ass maybe. What did you do to him? I ask, poking Darius in his rock-hard chest. I swear. I nearly sprained my finger, but he doesn't even flinch. What had to be done? This child is too valuable to leave unprotected. He says, excuse me? I'm the mother, in case you assholes forgot that tiny detail. I can protect my baby just fine. And I think it's past time the 3 of you left. Darius sinks into my couch, frowning in discomfort. I won't be going anywhere. Not without the child. I look to Rune and Zev, but they each shrug. I'm afraid you're stuck with us. Zev says with a flirty grin and a wink. You get free postpartum medical support if that's any consolation. I hesitate because that is actually the best argument they've had so far. Given my shit insurance, I had no idea how I was going to cover the cost of giving birth to Rain, and yet here I am in the clear. However, Zev fails to mention the part about them all wanting to steal my baby. Yeah, that's great. Right up until one of you tries to snatch my kid. Also, come on, you can't all expect to stay in my tiny apartment. Where will you sleep? They each glance at the second bedroom, the one my grandparents shared for 50 years. All three of you will share a queen bed? I ask, bemused.
Rune frowns.
I believe our sleeping needs are different. Is this seriously happening? I ask, frustrated beyond measure, and suddenly, completely exhausted, I hobble to the recliner as Rain starts to fuss again, and begin nursing her just as my stomach rumbles. When was the last time you ate? Rune asks, casting a sideways glance at my
Satki-chan.
I shrug. It's been a while, I admit. Rune heads to my kitchen and begins rummaging through cupboards. When was the last time you acquired food? I shrug again. Look, it's been a busy third trimester. Rune looks to Darius and Mr. Tall, dark and sexy sighs in annoyance. Then in a blink disappears through my window. What the? Listen, I say, pulling my gaze from the window to the remaining two sexies. You guys need to start acting like normal human beings if you plan on staying here, or this isn't going to work. Sadly, my point is undermined when I yawn, exhaustion overtaking me. Zev saunters over, his gait like a wild animal, sleek and fluid. Come, get some rest. Your body is still healing. Another yawn takes control of my face, and I don't argue as he helps me up. Burp Rain while making my way to the bedroom. I have no energy left for arguing, and it's clear it won't do any good anyways. Maybe with some sleep, I'll have a better idea how to get these guys out of my life for good. Not wanting to let go of Rain, I take her to bed with me, and the moment my head hits the pillow, I pass out. My dreams are feverish in nature, full of strange beasts and haunting images that blend my life in New York with other realms, and monsters chasing me. When I wake, I am covered in a sheen of sweat that makes my sheets stick to me. I'm groggy as I try to figure out what woke me, and realize my breasts are painfully swollen and leaking milk all over my bed. Rain still sleeps, and my bladder feels ready to burst. Oh, the joys of motherhood. As I sit up and prepare to secure Rain with pillows while I head to the bathroom, I gasp. This is my room, but it isn't. The wallpaper has been replaced with a pale blue paint and elaborate molding. My bed is no longer the ancient mattress with springs that poke and prod, but instead seems to be made of clouds with a new four-poster rosewood canopy draped with shimmering silver silk. My sheets are luxuriously soft and match the walls, with a thick velvet white comforter embroidered with small flowers. New art hangs on my walls, and new furniture has replaced what I once had. My urgent need to pee propels me forward despite my confusion, and I find the bathroom has also been redone with scented hand-carved soaps, new paint and light fixtures, and a thick carpet. Even the sink, toilet, and bathtub have been replaced. What the actual hell? Once I relieve myself, I head to the living room to find out what's going on. Am I hallucinating? Have I lost my damn mind? Rune is in my kitchen plating food, a kitchen that now boasts new cabinets, new tile flooring, and state-of-the-art appliances. Darius is sitting on an exquisite love seat, and Zev is stoking a fire in a fireplace I didn't have a few hours ago. My rickety upright out-of-tune piano has been replaced with a Steinway that easily cost $200,000. My fingers itch to play it so much that my eyes burn with tears at the thought. It's been a while since I've had one of those babies under my fingers. Could someone please explain to me how my entire apartment has changed while I slept? I ask. Wait, is this paranormal thing a bit, and you're actually part of an HGTV remodeling show? H what? Leave it to Rune to be confused by everything and confirm that. No, I'm not on a reality show. Darius looks up from a book he's reading. The chosen one needed better accommodations, he says simply, as if that explains everything. Rune approaches with a plate, bone china, mind you, filled with chicken, fresh salad, and a side of grilled vegetables. You must eat and replenish your strength. How do you cook without power? I ask, my stomach rumbling as I take a seat on the new couch and sigh at how comfortable it is. You now have a barbecue on your balcony, Rune says. And you have a Balcony. I raise an eyebrow, and glance out the new door leading to said balcony. This isn't possible. Where did all this stuff come from? Ask studying my surroundings. It wasn't easy, Zev says, but we're resourceful. How did I not hear this? How did you add a balcony and change wallpaper and redo my floors in just a few hours while my baby and I slept through it all? We have our ways, Rune says. Ways that would not be comprehensible to your kind. I shake my head, entirely bemused and befuddled, but also slightly ravenous. The food is delicious and I make quick work of it. Rune is on hand to take my plate back to my entirely renovated kitchen. The apartment is still small, but it no longer feels that way. Everything is high quality and top of the line. Feel pampered. It's a strange sensation and I don't know how to respond. What happened to my personal stuff? I ask, looking around, my eyes landing on my family portrait with relief. I walk over, still careful with my stiff and fragile body, and study the four of us. This was the last picture taken of us before my mom died. I say to the room, not really caring who's listening. The day we had it done, she and I had gotten into a huge fight. Don't even remember what about, just that I was still in a pissy mood when the photographer showed up. I study my young face, all tween angst and drama. But my mom, she's glancing down at me with such fierce love. Sometimes this image is the only one I can clearly remember of her, the way the right side of her lip curls higher than the left when she smiles, and the tiny scar on her forehead that had a different story to it every time I asked her how she got it. She and I share the same bright blue eyes and dark hair, the same pale complexion. We both take after my grandmother, who is clutching my grandfather's hand in the portrait. My grandparents raised me after my mom died. I say, I'll need to visit my grandmother soon. Introduce her to Rain. She may not remember us, but I want her to know her great-granddaughter nonetheless. Anything personal was kept, Zev says. The rest was tossed. Right. I really hope these guys know how to tell the difference between what's personal and what's not. Now that I've eaten my fill, I can no longer resist the temptation of that piano, regardless of how they acquired all the shit in a blackout snow storm. You didn't rob anyone, did you? I ask, suddenly worried as I make my way to the piano bench. Darius chuckles. No. We have no need for that. Everyone was well compensated. Much of this was accomplished by magic, Rune says with a shrug, as if that explains it all. As long as they didn't steal it, I'm satisfied enough to enjoy it for now. Let my fingers run over the ivory keys, closing my eyes as my memories drift back to my time in New York, to the life that could have been if I hadn't gotten pregnant, if my grandfather hadn't died. If. Too many ifs. I shove them away and begin to play. I start with something easy to warm up. I haven't had much time for this since I've been back, but as muscle memory kicks in, I move to more complicated pieces, finally landing on Ravel's Gaspard de la Nuit, one of the hardest piano pieces ever written. Everything disappears and I lose myself in the complex notes, reveling in the way my body feels, the way the music fills the apartment, the way I connect to the instrument like I am one with it. When I finish, there is a profound silence in the room, and I turn to see all three guys staring at me in wonder. Darius exhales a breath he seems to have been holding in. I have never in my significantly long life heard anything so beautiful. His voice is soft, almost a breath against my mind, and his praise fills something in me that has been empty for far too long. I fall into the feeling, wishing I could have had the life that was once promised to me before. The mood is broken by the sound of someone knocking at the door. Who's here now? I don't get this many visitors on a normal day, let alone in the middle of a freaking blizzard. The guys exchange worried glances, and I sigh and go to answer. My childhood bestie stands at the threshold, mascara running down her cheeks, long blonde hair pulled into a messy bun, her clothing disheveled. Aye. My gaze falls to the blood seeping through a bandage tied haphazardly around her arm. What the hell? Can I stay here for a few days? She asks, sniffling. John shot me. Chapter 5. Jesus Christ, I guide her out of the cold, trembling with fear and rage. I disliked John when they started dating, loathed him a year into their marriage, and now I finally get to kill him. We move toward the love seat, and my sexy, irritating home remodelers all gather round. I'm too focused on AJ's wound to consider the scene she finds herself walking into. Sweet Lord have mercy, AJ mutters under her breath, her head on a swivel as she looks between my gorgeous guests. Shit, Bernie, did you win the lottery? AJ's the best. The bullet wound could be in her head and she'd still crack. Wise. I get her seated and before I can make the request, Zev is there with a towel and some unmarked glass bottles. Those weren't here a day ago, so I guess he found an apothecary while he was piano shopping. Hi, AJ manages to say as she falls into the wilderness that lives in Zev's green eyes. Good morning, Zev replies in his gruff but soothing voice. I'm sorry, didn't catch your name. I'm Anna Jane, she says softly, with an obvious subtext of please ravage me. Hearing AJ use her full name throws me. She hates her name even more than I hate Bernadette. Clearly, she's overwhelmed by the magnitude of hotness in my apartment. Hell, she hasn't even noticed the $1 million renovation yet. My freaking baby. Rune walks over with a glass of water for her. The manners on these intruders.
Consistantly surprise me.
As he hands her the glass, he pours a single drop of something from another unmarked bottle. Here, this will help with the pain. I stifle a laugh. Since walking in and laying eyes on Darius, Zev and Rune, I don't think AJ's felt a thing. Thank you, oh my. Her reaction to Zev ripping the sleeve off her undershirt is ridiculously muted. Oh my, this girl normally swears like a sailor and now she's trying to pull off the demure act while my sexies tend to her gunshot wound. Catch myself getting possessive and try to dial it back. These uber hot creeps are here to steal your baby, Bernie. Don't forget that. It's a deep cut, but the instrument passed through surface tissue and didn't hit the bone, Zev explains, his words entirely lost on AJ as she studies his woodland godlike face. AJ, I say firmly, kneeling down and putting my hands on her knees. Got it. Feels good to kneel again. That's something you take for granted until you're 8 months pregnant and trying to put on a shoe. AJ, what happened? And where is that son of a bitch? She finally turns away from Zev and looks at me, a sadness settling in behind her big brown eyes. He was drunk and mad because, that's just his natural state of being. She starts, and I can see there's more anger than sadness in her look. It's a hard shift to notice, but after a few thousand heart-to-hearts with this girl, I pick up on her mood pretty fast. Then the power went out and he started getting drunker, and that made him madder. We yelled at each other a little last night and then he passed out, so I thought that was the end of it. But the bastard started drinking first thing this morning. I called him a deadbeat loser and may have said a thing or two about his mother, then I got shot. She's a little too casual in her storytelling for my taste, but I know she's trying to keep her rage at bay. John started making life more difficult the day he and AJ met when he transferred to our high school senior year, but she always thought she could fix him. I wonder if this will be her breaking point. I'm so sorry. Of course you can stay. I'm interrupted by a cry from the bedroom, which serves as a great reminder that I have a baby. It also alerts AJ to a few of the changes. Holy shit. Burn. You're not pregnant. That was the obvious one. I'll give her time to catch up on the other tweaks. As the day goes on, she bursts to her feet and pulls me into a strong embrace, thwarting Zev's efforts to clean her wound. Where is she? AJ asks, happy tears in her eyes. I have to meet her. Stay right here, I'll bring her in, I say, giving AJ a gentle squeeze on her unshot arm as I go. Just as I disappear into the bedroom, I hear my friend sounding a bit more like herself and not an overwhelmed schoolgirl as she addresses the unexpected. Yes. So, in the name of all that is good and holy, who the hell are you three? When I get to Rain, I can tell it's time for a diaper change and a feeding. Feel a little uncomfortable leaving AJ alone with the sexy stranger brigade. But she can stand up for herself as well as anyone, and I know they don't want any extra trouble. I move Rain to her changing table and try to listen to the conversation in the front room in between the sobs. I can't hear much, just the occasional mention of countries as AJ tries to guess where everyone is from. Like Paraguay? No. Portugal. Which one's in Europe? No, never mind, your hair's too light. I love this girl so much. Her knowledge of the world outside of Massachusetts has, let's say, some gaps. That doesn't stop her from talking like she knows. Shit. Their conversation makes me wonder, what do I tell AJ? Do I bring her into the loop? Will she believe me if I try? And what will these guys do to me or her? If someone else knows what's going on, it might not be worth the risk. I haven't quite decided on a plan of action as I head back out with Rain.
I
Stands with the men in a circle around her, and I'm quite sure she orchestrated this positioning. Don't get me wrong, she's never been unfaithful, but she recognizes a thing, or three things of beauty when she sees it. Plus, with John being the world's biggest piece of shit, I hope she takes all the time she wants to enjoy the view. Still, she knows what's important and abandons the sexies when she sees her goddaughter coming her way. She still needs to eat, so don't be offended if she screams the whole time. You hold her, I say like I'm a total expert on babies as I gently hand Rain to her. She can cry all she wants and I'll still love her forever, AJ says, and I know it's true. My God, Bern, she's gorgeous. What's her name? Rain, I answer, knowing full well you and your weird hippie shit. For being best friends since we were kids, AJ and I don't have a lot in common. It's why I left Rowley and she never did, nor did she ever plan to. Our differences have helped strengthen our bond over time, forcing us to appreciate and overlook traits we might not have had patience for if it weren't for the depth of our friendship. I love seeing her hold Rain, and look forward to years of them spending time together, but she's still bleeding from a small hole on her upper arm. AJ, you need more time with my medics, I say, reaching for Rain. You can play with the baby after you're stitched up. She looks down at her arm, remembering the reason she came here. Right. Her voice trails off as she looks over her shoulder at the flawless men quietly observing our every move. Bernie, what's happening? When was she born? Who are these guys? Why? I don't know, why everything? Before I can start to respond, Zev comes over and gently guides AJ back to the love seat. The moment he touches her, she's lost again in a sexy fog. I'm going to numb your arm, then suture the wound, Zev explains as he sits AJ down, her eyes never leaving his face. My thread will help you to heal. AJ offers a slight nod to Zev, then looks at me questioningly. Wait, Bernie, for real, who are these guys? I appreciate the medical attention and all, but this is too weird to ignore. Well, shit. Now I've got half a second to decide how to play this. I don't know what to do, what's going to happen, or how much danger any of us are in. But my gut tells me to keep up the ruse. If nothing else, that might give me more time to figure something out. Where do I start? This is Zev, Rune, and Darius. All male eyes are glued to me, also interested in how my introduction will go. They showed up at my bar last night on their way to Montreal. Got stuck here when the power went out, and that's pretty much why Rain and I are alive. AJ's eyes go wide. Are you serious? I nod, and it dawns on me that I mostly told the truth. A little fib about where they're headed, but I don't know what would have happened if these men didn't have some insane prophecy guiding them to my doorstep. As for that final part, I'll fill AJ in after I figure out how we're going to survive. I mean, that's insane, AJ very astutely observes. And you're all doctors? There's a momentary silence as the men figure out who will field questions. Addressing the group, Darius takes the lead. We all have medical training, if not the actual title of doctor. And what's in Montreal? AJ's always been a talker, especially around cute guys. With so many years lost to a loveless marriage, I imagine it's only going to be worse now. Are you all going to a medical conference or something? Another beat. So handsome, smart, and strong, but the quick wit is severely lacking. They look between one another, hoping someone will speak. Naturally, AJ fills the dead air. What's up, fellas? No one remembers why they're going to Montreal. Yes, Rune blurts out, clearly an unskilled liar. A medical conference or something. Zev and Darius nod, trying to show how they're all on the same page. AJ just stares, then starts to laugh. Okay, whatever. You guys are lying through your teeth, but you're fixing my arm, so I'll let it slide. Her ability to brush things off has always astounded me. It's probably made her a little complacent at times, but right now it's really benefiting us all. So, Bernie, AJ says, changing the subject. When did you get all this amazing shit? God damn it. And I thought explaining the hottest men in the universe being in my house would be the biggest challenge. This is definitely going to be harder. Oh yeah, I forgot you hadn't seen the place yet. I gesture around, trying to buy myself some thinking time. Won the lottery. Took out a loan. Lion. Say nothing's changed. None of those will fly. Gotta go random. I inherited everything. I start having no trouble sounding surprised. because I'm not entirely sure what'll come out of my mouth next. An older cousin on my mom's side left a bunch of stuff to my mom. I guess he's got no next of kin and somehow didn't know my mom was dead. Honestly, I keep waiting for someone to come back and reclaim it all. A truck showed up a few days ago, and now I'm wicked fancy. Ajay stares at me, her right eyebrow cocked in a very disbelieving fashion. The sexies all stare at me as well, none of them with a clue as to what I said. Clearly, AJ says, and I'm half sure she's about to call out my bullshit. But then she goes on. This is the universe trying to get you to live in Rowley forever. And I appreciate it, powers that be, she says, looking up and doing a kind of cross thing over her chest that I'm pretty sure is made up. But I won't allow it. Bernie's too good for this dumb town, so she's back to playing concert halls and shit as soon as baby Rain's old enough to stay with her. Auntie. If she's moved on to taking shots at our hometown, she's good with my story. AJ will kill a bitch who badmouths Rowley if they're not from here. But when it comes to me and pursuing my dreams, she thinks this town can get bent. I'd never felt like AJ was truly mad at me about anything until I moved back. That's something we're still working out. Finished, Zev cuts in, having swiftly tended to AJ's arm while we talked it out. Oh, whoa. AJ looks at her wound and isn't sure how to react. So tightly stitched the gash is only barely noticeable, and yet from a few feet away I can hardly see the thread. What kind of invisible synthetic shit is this?
I asks.
It's not a material you would know about, Zev offers, and I'm curious to hear how he handles a barrage of follow-up questions before he can continue. Darius' voice interrupts, but the words don't come from his mouth. Instead, they go straight into my freaking head. The thread is made of his own hair, Bernadette. I make eye contact with Darius and I know he's talking directly with me, but doing it so AJ can't hear him gives me the funniest feeling, like I'm having a casual conversation against my will. He's overpowering my mind and, frankly, I wish I didn't like it so much. It's what he used to stitch the tearing after Rain was born. You have werewolf hair sewn throughout your VA. Get out. I scream to make Darius leave my mind, but unlike his words, mine resound loudly throughout the room. Everyone looks up worried. Sticking with the theme of the day, I improvise. Get out of here with those medical stories, Zev. We don't have time to learn the history of medicine from wherever you're from. I've got a baby to tend to. AJ needs to decide how many charges she wants to press against her husband, and you three need to learn how to tend bar. I pulled that last one out of my ass and couldn't be happier with myself. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, I say to AJ, though my words are mostly meant for the men, I'm going to try like hell to turn into my sexy slaves. Since I'm on mom duty, these guys are going to handle the business downstairs for a day or two while they're stranded. Win-win, am I right? AJ smiles because I am right. The three men frown because they don't necessarily agree. If you don't mind, maybe you can teach them some tricks of the trade? Start by showing Rune where the kegs are and how to change a tap. Of course I don't mind, AJ answers, giving my arm a squeeze in Rain's head.
Otainikis.
Rune is Blondie, right? Follow me. I watch them head out the door, and I'm thrilled to death that AJ is here, even if it does complicate my living arrangements even more than they already were. My immediate future is still incredibly vague, but she brings a burst of hope and happiness into my life that I'm grateful for, especially now. After they leave, I turn to Darius and Zev. First off, don't pull that shit again, Darius. Stay out of my head. He offers a curt nod, but I'm not sure he's going to follow my order. Then I turn to Zev. And did you really stitch me up downstairs with your own hair? Downstairs? No, you were up in your bedroom, Dash. You know what I mean. The wound's below my waist. Ah, Zev says, finally catching on. Yes. You'll find no thread as strong or as sterile as the hair of a wolf. Not an earth wolf, of course, but from Dash. Got it, thank you. I cut him off, my brain not needing any more information to process. I head for the hallway, taking Rain to the comfort of our own bedroom. You two can join Rune down in the walk-in fridge, I say as I reach the door. This is a small town, where everyone knows me and everyone talks. People don't think you should be here, they'll make their feelings clear. I look at Rain and her beautiful little face. We just met, but I'd die for her. In an instant. You might have powers we don't, I say with renewed passion, but a town of angry massholes looking out for their own isn't something you want to reckon with. Be that as it may, Darius says, stepping forward, his dark eyes mesmerizing me into temporary silence. We cannot leave the child unprotected. He glances. Zev then back at me. While you slept, we agreed that at least 2 of us would stay near her at all times. I glare at the man before me. First, she's not unprotected. She's with me. And I will not let anything happen to her. Second, you 3 don't get to make decisions about my baby. You don't get to make any decisions about. But before I can finish, the sound of a gunshot coming from outside my door interrupts me. Rain screams bloody murder in my arms, my breasts pulse in pain from the pressure of the milk, and Zev growls like a wild animal. My front door crashes in and slams to the floor, a hulk of man on the other side, his dirty blonde hair a greasy mess, his wife-beater shirt stained with dirt and beer, his brown eyes wild with fury, and a double-barreled shotgun cocked in his hands. It's John AJ's good-for-nothing husband. I know she's here, you dumb bitch. Give me back my wife or you and that brat of yours are gonna get shot.